We're back for more recruiting news. We had a ton happen last week. The summer is popping, as Brian has already told us. Hold on to anything you can during the summer because it's going to get crazy. I'm back with Brian Smith as we talk more recruiting news for Georgia Bulldogs next on Locked On Bulldogs.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. I'm here today with Brian Smith. He is a recruiting guy out of the South, and he knows all them names that you know, that I know, and Georgia has on their mind. Brian, how are you doing today?
Doing well, sir. Doing well. Almost to the end of this recruiting stretch. Almost.
We're so close. If you don't know what recruiting stretch is right now, the summer used to be kind of laissez-faire, just kind of get through it and see what happens. Now it is abject madness with 2 different signing days, 2 different times to commit. It's NIL. The whole cart has been tossed up. It's insane. We're going to talk about a couple of commits that are already in the fold for the Dogs and then get to a couple names that we're looking at as well. And I want to start with what I look at film and just start salivating over. Jonah Ajoni has committed to the Dogs. This guy is big. He is fast. I saw a couple of reps of him taking out recruits and manhandling them backwards. I want to talk about Jonah Ajoni and ask, what are the Dogs getting in this 6'3", 6'4", 270, 275, possibly 3-tech, 4-tech, somewhere on the edge? Who is this and who are the Dogs getting in this recruit?
This is a kid that Kirby is famous for developing, and the entire defensive staff. I'm not trying to leave anybody out here. They do a great job. But they've always found guys that are kind of diamonds in the rough and whatnot. He's somewhere in between that. The length he has is just insane. I'm sure first thing you put on the film, you're like, oh, wow. Like his legs are abnormally long and everything, his arms. He could one arm stab a guy and just get to the quarterback. He has gifts you can't teach. But his effort and his change of direction were really good. And especially for a kid with his length, I'll tell you what, Ajoni's first step was like, holy cow. That kind of explained to me why Kirby and everybody, I mean, he had offers from everybody. Oklahoma wanted him. You know, he could have pretty much gone wherever he wanted, and he's still raw. That's what's interesting. Georgia runs a 3-man line. I think he will be the quote-unquote strong side D end, if I had to guess, in a 3-man. He did a little bit of that kind of stuff at his high school. He plays just north of Houston, and he's played against real competition. So his transition may take a year or so. He needs to add a little bit of weight. But, man, you talk about upside to play in that line. There's very few guys that really fit a 3-man line. It's a very specific body type. You know that.
That's exactly right. Yeah, when we talk about, what kind of defensive schemes we're doing, we like versatility now. It wasn't the 3-4 only. 3-4 used to be something back in the day. Now we have the star position, the safety, DB, nickel, all put together, linebacker guy that you have to have. And for this is the Travon position. This is the Jalen Carter-esque position where you get that. You talk about first stab, and those are the film I'm talking about. When I look at this kid's first stab, and he rocks a kid back with that one arm. My goodness, you're able to free up an arm with that technique and that size, that lean to him. Things get dangerous in a hurry. This is where you collapse. This is a pocket collapser in entirety of what he does. So he is big. He probably does have to put on some more weight to that. But yeah, when you're talking, he's got a 6'10" plus wingspan to him.
I mean, he had to have been a basketball player at some point, I would assume.
Had to.
Or a track kid or something, like, because everything just is, it's easier. His reach is just abnormal.
Yes. And that's what's so incredible. Again, this is the Diamond in the Rough or the Kirby special is a kid. They typically have 3 stars to them. They don't typically have the 4-star. They have this 3-star and then they get developed.
Houston, so he got a little more attention.
That's right. That's right. He did get a lot of attention over at Oak Ridge High School. And yes, this just excites me. You turn on the film. I think there's a couple of recruits in this cycle that are very, very new to football. You say raw. And again, when you have the track record that Georgia has with guys already in the line ready to come out, ready to do that hockey line adjustment, you can take a stab on somebody like this because he's going to pan out somewhere along the line. This size, speed, lean, athleticism is incredible. Yeah, this excites me to know. And the more film I watch, the more I'm excited. And I'm going to keep my eye keenly on him because this could be, by the end of it, again, on the defensive line, somebody that probably is higher ranked or should have been higher ranked coming out because nobody had intel on him. He's raw like that. We're going to come back after this, and I'm going to ask more about the trenches that, again, Georgia just keeps on mustering. But first, these messages. Right now, I want to let you know about FanDuel. FanDuel is fantastic. They have every single thing that you need right now over at FanDuel.com to place wagers on maybe a Heisman odds here and there. Maybe if you can go ahead and get some futures. I think it's going to be Caleb Williams in the finals. But if you're telling me Carson Beck doesn't have a shot to get in that finals, be it New York, if I had those odds, I don't want just the odds to win it. I want odds to be in New York. I would take it. FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more. And they are the official sports book of Locked On Bulldogs and Locked On Podcasts everywhere. They are safe. They are secure. They are incredibly interface friendly. Everything that you need is right now over on FanDuel.com/locked-on. And right now, if you're a first-time user, you put that money in and your first bet does not cash. Your first bet does not cash. You lose out on it. Maybe you're betting on the All-Star game because you're just so delusional and you need action that bad, which there's a hotline for you if you're betting on in baseball All-Stars. But if you don't get that, then you get $1,000 in bonus bets right back to you. FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Brian, we're back talking more recruiting news, and there's another guy who's out there on the defensive line, just I think by all recruiting services. I don't know if it's universal, but got a huge bump, and that's Waneri, the defensive end linebacker, extraordinary technique, lean, size, speed, everything. I think he's number one in all recruiting services, certainly composite now at this point, outside of the quarterback position possibly. But Waneri is somebody that the Dogs have locked in. There's three positions. There's three layers, defensive line, linebacker, and then safety, who we're going to get to KJ Bolden here in a second. But Waneri's squarely locked on to Georgia and there's a couple of names out there. Tell us who Waneri is as a recruit, and then we'll get to what's the chances the Dogs land him.
His recruitment is very unusual. When you and I were talking about this off air, his list, I mean, Georgia's not shocking. He's a defensive lineman, so, I mean, that makes sense. Missouri's in state, so there's a little bit of understanding, but it's still Missouri. Right. Oklahoma, that's the one I'll come back to, and then Oregon. Oregon is always the most difficult school to explain, but their attraction is the visit and the facilities. I get that. He's going to take a visit out there in September, allegedly. So that's the asterisk school. They always make me nervous with things. Oklahoma, they have connections to that state, and they've recruited Missouri really well for a long time. Most people think that's where he would pick. I don't know how accurate that is, but they need defensive linemen desperately. And if you saw them play last year, you would know. Yes. But they got a long way to go. It's not that your mama's Oklahoma right now. It's just not. But they've got a great defensive line coach that's a recruiter, et cetera. I still think it'll come down to them and Georgia.
Yep.
I think kind of like Jonah, he could play that spot, but he can play weak side or whatever. He's freaky deaky athlete. Like, it's whatever. He's a kid at 250 could legitimately play linebacker athletically.
Yeah, we're talking hand off the ground in space.
Yeah. Which is like, that's really unusual. The kid that went first in the draft a couple of years ago is like that kind of athlete. Figure out where he goes later, but like barring injury or him doing something dumb, he's going to the NFL. He's that kind of athlete.
That's exactly right. And that's why Waneri is on the top of the list. And it is a little shocking to me, maybe not totally shocking, because Oregon, just the excitement around Oregon, Dan Lanning coming from Georgia, being on the West Coast, Pac-12, and you really, really, really get to get after quarterbacks in that division. And maybe that is exciting, and maybe some excitement with Dan Lanning.
Dan is also from Kansas City, where that kid's from.
Connections. That's what recruiting is all about. If I like you, do you like me? Do we get along? Can we play together? And we're here to tell you again, Dan Lanning, we were very happy that he went to the West Coast and he did not stay because he's a great coach, great recruiter.
Yeah, taking kids from Georgia. Sure.
I mean, look, just think about this. Oregon is not the powerhouse that everybody thinks that it is right now. It could get there maybe one day, but it is not that right now. Now, if you're telling me Dan Lanning's going after the number one kid in the cycle, number one kid, there's a reason, because Dan knows what he's doing, and we're glad he's out at Oregon. And we wish him all the best in the world until we get to the playoffs, and then we hope you crash and burn at the hands of Georgia. Maybe, possibly. We'll see how this season plays out with Bo Nix and what they do. Nwaneri is, I've been maybe speculating of the three layers, the top 5 kids at linebacker, defensive line, safety. I think Georgia gets 2 out of 3 of those. I think it's hard pressed to get all 3. If you went 3 for 3 on that, that would, I mean,
it's possible. It's possible. It is. But recruiting's fascinating, though, man. You just don't know.
No clue. No idea. We're going to come back after this, and I'm going to ask Brian some more questions on some offensive line, as well as the aforementioned best safety in this class, but right after these. We're back with Brian Smith, FB Scout _Florida over on Twitter. You can find him over there. By the way, welcome to the 199. If you're not part of the 199, you need to be. Well, you're here anyway, so that's loyal third segment listeners. Go to bonfire.com/store/the 199 to get your merch. Bottles and Buckets is our favorite t-shirt. Go over there, check it out right now. We had a rush on offensive tackles at Georgia this last week. Have you... Try to think through another team that has had the type of success on the trenches that Georgia is having right now. Can you think of one in recent history? Because I just saw a list of Alabama or Florida or Florida State, and the number of recruits they have on offensive line, it's like 1 4-star or 2 4-stars or 1 3-star. We have 4 4-stars and a couple of 3-star kids who are already committed to. Have you seen something of this length of the top 100 offensive linemen before? And if so, what can you say about it?
Notre Dame's done it a few times. They've got a lot of tradition O-line, like Quentin Nelson, et cetera.
Yeah.
But like to get it to kind of transform in a week's time,
yeah,
like a bunch of them is really weird. I don't know if Kirby tried to plan it that way, if it just happened, but I was going through their commit dates earlier today as I was going through watching film, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of celebrations. I didn't realize there were that many in like that short a time. And then they already had a couple of guys that were really good anyway. So I think off the top of my head, like the smallest one's like 315 or something like that. It's so big too. That's like they do different things. I'm sure you've seen and heard about some of the things they do with their linemen and running. It's different. Georgia's strength program does it really different than most, but they want to go with size again. And it's to the point like Nair Daniels is my favorite one to watch. I've seen his film. He's 360-ish and he's really light on his feet, which sounds dumb. I mean, I openly admit that sounds dumb. I love that kid. His upside is tremendous. He's underrated. He's not in the top 100 by a few services, which, hey, that's their deal. I don't think that's right. I think he's a top 100 player. And Stacey Searles is a tremendous coach. I trust his opinion. Yeah. That O-line, man, I've got my order, like where I think I would play them and different things. But it doesn't matter because they're all so good. It'll take care of itself. Now, a couple of the guys like Calhoun, he could play any of the spots. It wouldn't matter. But
yeah, we were
340 or 350 or whatever too. Huge.
A couple of days ago, we had the podcast and we were talking about what's incredible about how Kirby has. We chronicled the difference in Kirby's recruitment, or maybe Alabama's understanding of offensive linemen when Kirby was there, and what Kirby's done since he's gotten to Georgia. And Stacey Searles, you have Matt Luke, Stacey Searles, Sam Pittman, all incredible offensive line coaches in their own right.
And pretty good run right there, by the way.
Incredible run. And we could say they had a lot to do with it, but also Kirby's been the common factor in all of those. And if you look at the NFL and guys like Jamari Salyer, who we loved when he was at Georgia, and we said, why is he waiting to the 4th, 5th round to go? This is insane. And all of a sudden the Chargers are like, yeah, the height is what gets him. But he's now over left tackle Chargers and being like, oh, wait, he's a stud over there. We're going to protect possibly.
Well, he played left tackle at UGA, and everybody's like, is he good enough to play? And he was really good right away, too.
The answer is
sometimes
yes.
Guys are just special. And
yes.
He was one of those
yes.
guys.
So it's really, really incredible to me that they have this run, and Kirby is a great understander of talent and then gets them to the right coaching. Again, this is how Georgia does it. They take some lotto ticket kids, they get them refined in the process. And yeah, Stacey, I haven't heard one dog fan chirping about that hire yet. Now, all of a sudden we're like, oh, Stacey Searles, we're going to bring him back. Oh, that's a miss. Look at what he did at North Carolina. He wasn't good. Well, how about this? How about put this in your stuff and do some things with it?
What is a big part of that? I'm not picking on North Carolina, but that's not the same basket you're pulling out.
It's not. To the point, I agree 1,000%.
Program, but it's not the same.
No, it's not the same at all. Quite incredible run that they've had. All right, now let's get to KJ Bolden. His recruitment date is coming up, a couple weeks until he declares, and right now he's got everybody in the entire nation after him. Has anything developed this past year? And you talked about these top 5 kids. Has anything developed, anything popping, any newsworthy to talk about that might include Georgia getting more of a bump percentage wise?
I haven't heard anything, which tells me either his decision is made or he's just leaving us all out, which I talk to him every once in a while on Twitter. I know him. He's a great kid. It's been very silent. What that means, I don't know, but I haven't heard anything. I don't know what you've heard your way, but here in Florida, I haven't heard anything. And Florida State, Auburn, and a few other Clemson are still trying, and I'm sure they will try afterwards, but this is probably OSU, Georgia.
Yep.
I mean, for the love of God, he's got a family member that would coach him if he went to Ohio State. He's got some weird recruitment deals going on. And of course, Georgia's an hour from his house. So your guess is as good as mine, brother.
I think this is going to come down. I tend to think that he has made a decision and he's just sitting on it because he can.
He's a top 10 player. Yeah.
And he doesn't have to, and he can just say, no, I'm good. He's got that kind of clout to him. I think a decision has been made. It is going to come down to Ohio State and Georgia. Those are the two. Anybody else, maybe last minute they can try to do something. But
it happens, though. I mean,
it does.
I've been fooled here recently, so I'm tentative.
And I think that's more to the point of recruiting. Anybody that tells you, oh, no, I know definitively, stop. Stop it.
They're 17, bro. They're 17. There's no definite 17.
We try to remind you all the time, just don't count your chickens, as the saying goes. Just calm down. He is Brian Smith. Brian, where can the people interact with you, get you, find you, and talk to you?
At FBScout_Florida. Twitter is my main hangout, but there's more YouTube stuff kind of going on right now because we're about to see, once we get to KJ and a couple other kids, I'm probably going to do like a big podcast. Who won, who lost this summer. Still need to see where a few guys. You never know when Eric could decide to. Anything's possible. Why not? He's 17. He can make his decision whenever.
Right.
So hopefully we have some more to talk about here pretty soon with Georgia. There's a couple more kids, though. Obviously, KJ's kind of top of that board.
It is top of the list. We have the opportunity with how Kirby has recruited to get up to 28, 29 recruits with transfer portal misses and all the new rules that still boggle the mind. It used to be so cut and dry, and now I don't know.
Not at all.
If a kid committed on a day that starts with a T and it was the second such day and it's just bizarre and weird. He is Brian Smith. Thanks for being on here. This is Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We'll see you all tomorrow. More guests, more people all this week as we talk Bulldog news. We'll see you guys then.